G'day, it's Simon and Crystal from Pumped On Property, and in today's video, we're going to break down your top property investment questions. So thank you to everybody who's been sending these through via Instagram, Facebook, and some in the comments on the YouTube videos. Keep them coming. We'd love to do a little bit of community outreach and start answering some of these questions. So if you have any questions whatsoever about property investing, drop them below, and if we can answer them, we'll do our best in one of the videos to come.
Awesome, Simon. I'm excited. Let's just get stuck straight in. Firstly, I've heard you guys mention Townsville a couple of times. What do you like about Townsville?
So there's a few things I like about Townsville. First thing is the affordability. You can still purchase really high quality properties in Townsville for about $400,000 up to about $500,000. So for those that don't have a huge budget to purchase a property in a capital city, then it is a great alternative. And those properties generate a really strong rental yield. You know, we find that if you go out and buy a property for say $450, it should rent for at least $450, but up to $500 per week. So you get much stronger cash flow in that market at the moment. But historically, it's done quite well, especially at this stage of the cycle, when we see these regional markets in Queensland start to do some really good capital growth levels. So we expect things to move in a positive direction up there. But for me, it's like when you compare all of the regional markets in Queensland, it really stacks up because of the fundamentals associated with property investing. So it's the 14th largest market in Australia. It's the third largest regional market in Queensland. There's over 200,000 people that live up there, and it's growing by over 2,000 people per year at the moment. It has a relatively diverse economy in comparison to some of the other regional markets. So you do have mining, absolutely. That's probably the biggest sector up there of the economy. That also links the port of Townsville and the train line that comes in and out of the port. But then you've also got the military, and the Australian military force is expanding massively at the moment, and they're all moving north of the Capricorn line. And Townsville will actually be the largest military base in Australia. So that's going to attract a lot of people, and it's going to attract higher income earners, and it's going to attract people with good values that will be obviously paying their rent on time or be wanting to get into the market. But then you've also got tourism being on the Great Barrier Reef. You've also got a university up there, James Cook University, and you've also got a hospital up there as well. So it really has a lot to offer at the moment. And when I compare that to other regional markets, it just seems to be a little bit safer. So I'm really bullish on Townsville. I think we'll go one for one today.
Yeah.
So another one, which is a big question as well, what are the bigger infrastructure projects that are planned for Brisbane and Southeast Queensland?
Awesome. So I've prepared some information that has come through from the 2023 framework. It is available online. It's like hundreds of pages long. So I've tried to condense it into some of the important things that we're seeing or that we're talking about coming to Brisbane and Southeast Queensland. So just a couple of things to note. 72% of the population in Queensland live in Southeast Queensland, and 1 in 7 Aussies are living in Southeast Queensland. So this framework for infrastructure has taken into consideration that Southeast Queensland has a huge population and a continuing quite a large population growth. The goal of the infrastructure plans is to maximise the Brisbane Olympics in 2032, support a transforming economy and create accessible centres. They really want to expand like a sub-metro region, which is sort of connecting Brisbane to the Moreton Bay region and the Logan region as almost like a large mini city in itself. So basically the master plan outlines 6 new venues as part of the Olympics that's coming in 2032 and 8 upgraded venues. These are all located between the Sunshine Coast and the Gold Coast, and a lot of them within Brisbane City. They're talking the Cross River Rail, which we know, the Brisbane Metro and Gold Coast Light Rail is coming. The infrastructure framework states that by 2042, we're going to have a number of new road networks and rail networks in terms of corridors between the Sunshine Coast and north, as well as the Gold Coast, and then west out to Toowoomba. So they're really trying to connect those regional hubs with the city as well in a much more improved way.
Finally, as well.
Yeah.
You know, I know when a lot of people from Sydney and Melbourne come up to Brisbane, they're just like, your public transport system sucks. Let alone when people come out from overseas, you know, places like Europe, Asia, where they've got much better public transport options. So as we have a growing nation, there's going to be more of these projects, and it'll just make it more accessible and hopefully get more cars off the road.
Yeah, totally. It's definitely about maximising that connectivity between the major regional hubs, the city, as well as expanding the city. They're talking increased density in terms of housing supply within the Logan region, the Moreton Bay region, and Brisbane City councils, because there's just an undersupply of available land. So they've got to change the density rules around what can be done there. They're also talking about a faster rail between the Gold Coast and Brisbane, the Logan Council area in Brisbane, as well as Ipswich and Brisbane by the 2032 Olympics. So there's a lot in the works for Southeast Queensland. To execute on a lot of this, they've got to start by upgrading the pipework network around Southeast Queensland. So that's currently underway. So that a lot of this can start being implemented between now and 2032 and beyond, because they're talking big population growth as through to 2042.
And all you got to do is drive from Coolangatta to Noosa to really have an understanding as to how big that corridor is and how much is going on at the moment. It takes you so long to drive to Brisbane at the moment because of all the bloody traffic and all of the upgrades that are happening, hey?
Yeah, exactly. The roadworks are definitely annoying if you're a local right now, but 10 years to come, it's going to be amazing. And like I said, there's a lot more available online in terms of the venues that have been announced, the road upgrades. All I can say is there's heaps going on, and it's far too long of an answer to answer in a short video, but lots happening here in Southeast Queensland. Moving on to the next question. Thanks for sending these through, guys. What are the biggest red flags when buying a property?
Oh, okay. No, good question. There's a bunch of criteria that we analyse to check the suitability of any property. But I guess the first thing that we do, you know, you obviously check the market, make sure it's in a good, sound market. The bigger, the better in that instance. You're obviously checking the suburb, and there's about 30 to 40 different key performance indicators that we analyse to check whether or not that suburb stacks up. If it does, then once you're in the suburb, you want to get into the nicer pockets of the suburb. So avoiding those busy areas, those noisy areas, train lines, major arterial roads, thoroughfares, you know, ideally getting onto a nice, quiet, family-friendly street. So they're all sort of the big rocks, and making sure that the land is at least 400 square metres. But once again, the bigger the better, 500, 600, 700. As I said, the bigger the better when it comes to the land size. But then when it comes to the house, I think always getting a building and pest inspection done to ensure that the structural integrity of the property is sound and that there's no pest issues within the property, because that can cost you a lot of money. Also looking into if you're on a sloped block, looking into retaining walls and things like that. You know, a lot of the old timber retaining walls rot and deteriorate over time. That can be a really large expense to fix. We also look into the flooding, especially here in Brisbane. You know, there is a lot of flooding issues in Brisbane. It's a bit of a catch-22 though, because you look at the most expensive suburbs in Brisbane along the Brisbane River, the Brown Snake, and they're all in flood zones, but they're the most expensive properties. But as you start to get out into suburbia and Moreton Bay and Ipswich and Redland Bay and Logan, you must do those flood searches, and there's amazing information and resources online for free to check whether or not it's going to be in a flood zone. We also check the building approvals here in Queensland to make sure that property has been certified and approved, because if not, it can cause some issues with insurance.
Yep.
So you can get your solicitor to do those checks for you. They generally cost a little bit more money. There's some of the big rocks that I would mention. Is there anything that you would add to that?
There's actually a question here that talks about what relationships and partners do you need to buy or settle on a property. So I'll lead straight into that, because it pretty well is the red flags, the partners that you need to buy a property kind of work hands in hand together. So yeah, having your solicitor do additional checks on the property are going to pick up red flags. So they're going to look at outstanding debts on the property. They're going to look into the building approvals further, the flood searches further for you, title checks and everything like that. An insurance broker is a really important one to have. So an insurance broker is going to pick up a major red flag on a property. So if your insurance premium is coming back at $5,000 per year, $8,000 per year for an average residential property, yeah, it looks like there's something wrong. So it might
be between about 2 to 3, right?
Yeah, like my premiums are somewhere between about $1,800 and $2,500, and depending on the size of the home, the value of the home, that sort of thing. But your insurance broker will pick up some extra red flags, and if that risk is high, they will know that it could be a high crime rate area, it could be a flood zone area, it could be in a storm damage area or somewhere prone to storms and that sort of thing. So the partners that you have to buy and settle on a property will be the ones that help you pick up those red flags. The building and pest inspector will help you understand any structural issues or pest issues.
I'd also add property managers to that as well. I don't recommend managing your own properties unless you've got a bit of experience there. So you need a great property manager. I like working with a mortgage broker as well. That could be an option, or a great bank manager. Just knowing that you're likely to hit your servicing limits a bit quicker if you're going directly with a bank manager.
Yeah.
Obviously a buyer's advocate or a buyer's agent, if you're lacking the experience and confidence as an investor, you can leverage off the experience and expertise of a professional that specialises in this type of work. It's becoming a lot more common these days. We run a small buyer's agency, myself, Simon, my sister, Crystal, our brother, Ben, and a small team help a really small number of investors purchase properties in the Queensland market every single month. So if you're thinking of getting into the market and you'd like to, explore the different investment opportunities that are out there at the moment, if you're considering buying a property in the next 3 to 6 months, and we'd love to offer you a strategy session. During that strategy session, we'll talk about where you're at right now, where you're looking to be longer term, what's been holding you back, and some of the questions that you need answered, and we'll help you plan for the future so that you can confidently enter into the property market. If that's of interest to you, then head over to our website, www.pumpedonproperty.com, link below, and follow the free strategy session links to book that call in with me, Crystal, or our brother Ben.
So that was a really long-winded way to kind of answer 2 questions that came through, talking about the partners you might need to buy or settle on a property and talking about those red flags. We've got one more question here today, so get stuck into that one as well. I want to buy a property in 2024. Should I work with a bank manager or a mortgage broker?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's, up to you at the end of the day. Sometimes it can be best to go to your bank manager if it's your first or second property, if you've got a standing relationship with them, if you've been doing your personal banking with them for a while, they'll have all of your information and all of your details. So that might be a little bit easier. But if they shut the door on you, it doesn't mean that there's no one else out there, because that's just one of many banks. And this is where I think a mortgage broker really serves its purpose, because a mortgage broker will generally have access to 20 plus different banks, and all banks have different lending policies. There's the top tier lenders that are very strict and you really need to abide by their policies. Then there's second tier lenders that are a little bit looser and you might have a slightly higher interest rate. And then there's the third tier lenders who, will generally loan in more riskier circumstances at a much higher interest rate. So if you can't get the desired outcome from the bank that you've been with for your whole life, then that's when you would want to engage a mortgage broker. And the good thing about a mortgage broker is you don't pay them. They actually get paid directly from the bank. So a good question to ask your broker is, do you get paid high commissions by a particular bank? And are you incentivized to push us to a particular bank? Because if that's the case, then you're probably not best off going with that mortgage broker, because they've got a financial incentive to push you down a particular path. Whereas the brokers that we work with, they get the same commissions from all of the different banks that they work with. So they're really just working with your best interest at the top of their mind, and they can generally get you a great result. So I think with this, it's like, don't take no for an answer all the time. Seek out the support from a mortgage broker. And even if a mortgage broker tells you that you can't get finance, you can always look into a different mortgage broker. And what you can do with them is run a bit of a cash flow analysis. So based on the purchase price, the deposit that you'll put down, the interest rate, and the repayments, you can look at how much that's going to cost you. And you can do those calculators online for free as well. So then you can determine whether or not you're in a position to afford purchasing an investment property. So I'd explore both options there.
Awesome. Thanks for that, bro. I think, awesome questions today, and I really appreciate you guys sending them through. We'd love to continue hearing from you. So any questions that you have that come to mind, if you're looking to buy now or in the future, please send them through via Instagram, via Facebook, comments in our YouTube vids, and we'll always try and address them in these videos, and hopefully you guys are getting some info out of it.
That's a wrap.
Getting cool, bro. Yeah.
Oh, sweaty. So sweaty. Oh, that's good. Look at that. So nice, eh? Oh.